Hey dog lovers, in this sewing tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make DIY rattle dog toys. These are the custom dog toys where you're the designer here and you will make them for your adorable pooch, just like I did. Really quick, really simple, super adorable monster dog toys. So let's go through all of them. You get 3 different dog toy monster designs, and the first one here I call Monster A, measures about 23 inches high by about 15-16 inches wide from ear to ear. Monster B, you can name them something cuter. I just left them Monster A, B, C. Monster B measures from about 18 inches high and across to about 16 inches, almost 17 across. And then, I know they're so cute, Monster C, I think this one's my favorite, measures with 7 legs, but you can put less, measures about, let's see how high, about 26 high, complete, and wide, a little thinner, 8 inches. So these are the large ones, and I give you in the pattern same exact version in small, but I only made the monster in the B small. So up on the screen here, you will see all the sizes of the rest of the small monster dog toys. So if you'd like to sew along with me, go ahead and click on the link in the description of this video and it will lead you over to the online course where you could sign in and out of it as many times as you want and you download the patterns and other learning materials. By the way, to make these toys, rattles, these are the bottles that I used inside, the smaller ones in the small toy and the larger ones in the larger toys. And here are the monster patterns you'll have access to. This is the large monster A, taped together 1 through 6 that way. Large monster B, taped 1 through 6 this way. And large monster C, also 1 through 6, but the longer way. And then the small versions of each. Monster A, small version. Monster B, small version. And Monster C, small version. Okay, so let's put together Monster Dog Toy A. I'm going to put together all the large dog toys, and if you're making the small ones, it's the same exact steps. So I've already taped together my pattern here, and I've cut out all the details. And I love to keep everything in my clear sleeve here. So it keeps it all together and neat. So let's get started. Here are the fabrics that I'm going to be using. So this is a thin purple corduroy, and what I'm doing is folding them right sides together, and I'm placing my large pattern right on top, and I'm going to pin it down in place. You can even use pattern weights if you prefer. Now that I have 2 pieces cut out, I'm going to decide which one is the front. It really doesn't matter. And before even putting on the details, I'm going to actually make the ears. So I'm going to use an interior of a fleece and the same corduroy, purple corduroy for the back of the ear. I'm going to place the fabrics right sides together and cut them out. With the ears cut out, I'm just going to remove the pattern and pin them back together to keep them ready to sew for later. Next, I'm going to cut out all the monster details out of felt, and I didn't add any placements or markings on the pattern as to where you place it because you can just have fun with it and place it wherever you want. You can put the eyes closer together, further apart, even like play with the centers of the eyes and the pupils because it changes up the look, even your nose options here. So I like to be neat as I work, and I place everything in a sleeve so I don't lose any of the pieces. And now I'm cutting out all the details out of my scrap felt pieces. Depending on the placement of the features or details, it changes really the look of the monster. Next, on the sewing machine, I am going to sew around all of the details, staying close to the edge. I decided to use purple thread for stitching on all of the details of the monster, and I'm using a 2.5 stitch length here. Next, I'm going to sew the ears together. So I'm going to sew around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching on the ends. So I'm going to back stitch where I begin right here, and I'm going to use again a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to sew all the way around, back stitching at the end. Now check out how I place the ears onto the monster. First I see where I want the monster ears placed, just like this. And then what I do is I flip it over and I sew it in place right at the edge, just one quick stitch without even back stitching. Now that all my details are in place, what I'm going to do is take the back of the monster dog toy and I'm going to place it right sides together right on top of the front, and I'm going to pin it right in place. So this is where the neater you are lining up all the round and straight edges of the dog toy is best. Next, I'm going to leave about an 8-inch opening. So before I sew around, again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I am marking 8 inches open here with my chalk marker. And now I'm going to sew all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching on each of the opening edges. Right there is where I back stitch. Now, before turning this right sides out, what I'm going to do is clip every corner that I have here, little snip marks there, and on the curve. So what I'm going to do is cut notches, these like little triangle marks just like this, without cutting the seam. This way, when I turn it right side out, it actually turns much smoother without any pulls. And if you know any of my sewing tutorials, you know that I use a chopstick to turn around most of my sewing projects instead of a fancy turning tool. So what I do here is I'm turning in the raw edges of the fabric where my opening is, and I'm giving it a light press, not too hot, with my iron. And so the seam there, or the crease I should say, is ready to go after I stuff to give it a nice blind stitch. Now that I have these feet stuffed to the point that I like, what I'm going to do is see which water bottle I want to put in. This large one takes both the 1 liter and the larger soda bottle. So it's whatever look you want here. I'm actually going to decide to go with the 1 liter soda bottle, or whatever this is, seltzer bottle. And I'm actually not going to put the beans in, the dried beans in this one, just to leave it that way because I just want it that way. It's totally up to you when you make this toy. My next one, I'll put the dried beans. And then I'm going to add some stuffing, and you can actually put a sewing stitch where I just showed you there if you don't want your stuffing moving around. And it also changes a little bit the look of your dog toy. I'm going to leave it just as is because I like it like this. It's completely up to you how you close the opening here. You can do an invisible or blind stitch, a blanket stitch, whatever you wish. But I decided to run it right across the sewing machine, back stitching at the beginning and at the end. And this is it. This is the Monster A dog toy, rattle toy. How cute did it come out? So you're the designer and you make it however you want. Here's how to put together the large Monster dog toy B. So I've gone ahead and taped my paper pattern together, and I have all my details that I'm going to cut out of felt right here. And some of them I didn't cut out yet because I don't know which ones I'm going to use yet. So moving along, I have this blanket that I'm going to use for the back of my monster, and the front here I have this knit, which sometimes isn't always a good idea, but I'm going with it. With my fabrics placed right sides together, what I'm going to do is pin it down just like the other monster and cut it out. And what I meant by not being a good idea with the knit fabric is that sometimes the stretch can throw off the size of your dog toy, but you know what? It's just the dog toy, so it'll be fine. And again, my favorite part of making these monster dog toys is laying out the details because it gives each monster its own personality. And using the same method as before, I'm going to pin down all of the details onto the felt and cut them out. And back over to my sewing machine, I am going to sew very close to the edge on all of the details for this monster, and I've decided to use blue thread to match the body of the monster. Looking adorable so far. So now that I have all the details sewn onto the front, I'm going to take the back of the monster dog toy and I'm going to place that right on top of the front with the right sides of the fabric touching. So both right sides are touching each other, and then I'm going to pin it right into place. With it all pinned in place, what I'm going to do now is sew all around the entire monster dog toy, leaving a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to leave an opening here. And what I like to do, because I'm putting a bigger bottle in here, is leave about an 8-inch opening. So I'm marking it with my chalk marker here. Next, I'll add all my little snips in the corners here, and I'm going to actually cut off all the corners as well. So when I turn it right sides out, it turns much nicer. At this point, if you want to add little squeakers in the hands and feet, this is when you do it. So you're going to get the hands and arms stuffed to the point that you want. And then what I'm going to do is actually add a little stitch line closing off the arms and the legs, because I like the way they flap when the toy is done, and it keeps the stuffing in place. Next, I'm going to add a little more stuffing into the body and some crinkle paper. And this paper is just something that I ordered, some item I ordered off of Amazon, and I saved the paper that it comes wrapped in, or the plastic. So I added a little line there to sort of define the torso from the head. And now I'm going to add a little more stuffing into the head before I add the bottle. Now, however you close the top of this opening is totally up to you. You could do any kind of stitch you want there, even a blind stitch. But I'm going to bring mine over right over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And that's how to put together Monster B, the rattle dog toy. Remember, you're the designer here, so whatever fabrics and facial expressions you give it, give your dog toy its own personality. Next, I'm going to make the large monster dog toy. See, and I have already printed out and taped together the pieces that I need to tape together for this monster dog toy. So the legs, I say cut 14 because I want my monster to have 7 legs, but you could do less or more. It's up to you. And I keep everything in the plastic sleeve. So I've gone ahead off camera and cut out all the pieces. And if you don't know how to do that, back up in the video and watch how I do that for Monster Dog Toy A and B. Again, the green fabrics are a really thin velour. All my details are felt, and the spotted fabric is actually fleece. So what I'm going to do first is create this one jumbo eye. I'm going to pin everything together and sew the details in place. With my eye sewn all together, I'm going to attach it to the body of the monster toy. And as you know by now, this is my favorite part because you give your monster dog toy its own personality. And with all the little details that I provide in the pattern, you could really have fun with this. Next, with all the details sewn in place, I'm going to sew together the arms and the legs. So what I'm basically doing is keeping the fabrics right sides together, and then I'm going to sew using a 1/4 inch seam allowance around all of the arms and legs, leaving the top open. So I backstitch at the beginning and the ends, and I sew all around. Again, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, here I have a really thin corduroy type velour. I have a printed cotton and fleece. Because my arms have been designed with curves, I gave it notches all around, so when I flip it around, it will turn so much nicer without any pulls on the curves. Yeah, last minute I decided to add eyelashes. Just thought I'd show you. So now I'm going to lay out all the legs the way I want them in whatever order. If you want, add your squeakies in now, add stuffing, add crinkle paper, whatever you want. So I'm going to actually trim some of this crinkle paper, make it sort of in a long shape and stuff some in. So my dog gets to play with all different things in the legs. Squeaking, crinkling, you know what they like. Once the legs are in order, I'm going to flip them upside down right at the edge here. And I'm going to let the edge of the legs stick over the edge of the body just a bit. And then I'm going to pin it in place, bring it over to my sewing machine, and just do a quick straight stitch without even back stitching on the ends, just to hold it in place. With the same method that I've attached the legs, I'm going to do the same thing with the arms. And I purposely do not give you direction as to exactly where to place the arms because remember, you're the designer here. Place them wherever you want. With the legs and arms sewn in place, notice how I turn them in and now I place the back of the body onto the front. making sure the right sides of the fabrics are touching each other. And now I'm going to use clips and clip all the way around. You can even pin. Before sewing, I'm going to leave an 8-inch opening again, marking it with my chalk marker because I am putting the large soda bottle in here. And I am back stitching at the beginning of the opening and at the end, and I'm sewing using a 2.5-inch stitch length with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, seriously, how cute is this one? I don't know, I just love it. I don't know if it's the one eye or if it's the fact that it's green, but I love green. Anyway, I'm gonna take the large soda bottle here, put some dried beans in there, close up the bottle, and stuff this guy up. So for this one, I've decided to not machine sew it and actually hand sew the opening closed. And I am using a blanket stitch. So as I'm stitching, before I pull that loop tight, I stick the needle through the loop. And I honestly don't mind seeing a little bit of stitching on the side here because it is a DIY handmade dog toy. And that's it. That's how to make the Monster C Rattle dog toy. Again, remember you're the designer here, and whatever fabrics you choose, give your monster dog toy its own personality. Really hope you enjoyed this DIY dog toy sewing tutorial. So if you really love dog toy tutorials like this, definitely check out the other videos of mine right up here on the screen. Thanks again so much for watching, and if you'd like, give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again.